So welcome back to an unscheduled issue of ETCS Bites Back. We're going to have a look at the updates to the 2023 CCS TSI. So the great news is it has been agreed. Control, command and signaling technical specification interoperability has been signed off. It was signed off at the end of March and a vote held by a committee called RISC. That's the Railway Interoperability and Safety Committee. It's chaired by ERA, the agency, and has representatives from the member states, the Commission, and other interested parties. And great news, the core text of the CCS TSI was agreed. But, oh dear, there were some surprises. And the first surprise was around combining level 2 and level 3. We all knew that the plan was to combine it, and we thought the answer was going to be something called level R. But in a real big surprise, RISC decided that the combined level should be called level 2. Now, actually, it didn't really support level R because if you think about it, if we have a new train which supports level R operating on an older trackside alongside a train that doesn't support new level R, they're both going to be working in level 2, but one will have level R displayed on the DMI and the other level 2. And you can see how we could have communication difficulties between the driver and the signaller, with people getting confused about what level the train is operating in. So it's probably not a bad decision. But, as I say, for the onboard, there's not been much difference between level 2 and 3. I think there are about 6 clauses in subset 26 where it actually had different behavior for the onboard depending on whether it was in level 2 or level 3. So bringing them together was not a big deal. And the trackside has to do all the complex stuff. It's the one that actually takes the information from the train, the position reports, whether the train is integer or not, combines it with the train detection systems, and the whole of that's outside the TSI scope. So really, focusing on the onboard, just making it work in level 2, actually, there's no real change, and certainly no real change to the rules. Another area is FRMCS, and it's unfortunately not ready. As you probably know, the days of GSMR mobile radio are numbered, both in terms of the bandwidth being reallocated in the future, products being harder to source, updates not being available. It's on its last legs. And so everyone has been eagerly awaiting FRMCS. In case you don't know, FRMCS is the Future Railway Mobile Communication System, and it's based on 5G. But the whole idea is that it opens up future communication systems using Wi-Fi, satellite, 4G, 5G, anything you've got. However, when we looked at the draft specifications, we found that really it is just a placeholder. Subset 37, dealing with the EO radio, has been chopped up, but the section on FRMCS is pretty scant. No real information, no real indication how you do it in a real onboard if you're building one today. And in fact, the initial specifications, which will enable pilot route trials, are not now expected until mid to late 2024. And I have to say that different parties had different expectations. Railway undertakings were very keen on it. The various countries were very excited by it, believed it was going to be coming. Whereas those who are in the know, and the telecoms engineers particularly, knew that it was not as far advanced as perhaps the politicians were selling it. So there's been quite a bit of disappointment. And there was also disappointment that the technical specs are not ready when the main text has been signed off. That wasn't really a surprise to those of us involved because we knew some of the CRs were still being debated and they were tricky. And it's really until we get those detailed specs that we can't assess the impact of the TSI on real down-to-earth delivering ETCS. and they're not going to be available until Q3 of this year. So in all reality, we're probably talking September or so before they're published. But I wouldn't advise holding your breath. Around Europe now, there are various committees working on how to resolve those problems, and some of the solutions are pretty contentious. And of course, they've just been landed with an extra job, going through all the draft text that they had produced, changing level R back to level 2. You can understand there is some grumpiness in these committees, and I've seen one email with some very grumpy PowerPoint slides. One of the contentious issues is something called relocation without linking. So I think we all know that ETCS allows the onboard to work with distances which it measures based on the Belize group that sends the information, or where it comes over the radio, an LRBG, the last relevant Belize group. And those distances are subject to error. The odometry system is not perfect, never can be, and so you have a confidence interval which grows as the distance increases. But if you have something called linking, then there is that opportunity to correct those errors because the train can be told how far apart the various Belize groups are. So when a Belize group is encountered, instead of using the estimated distance and continuing to use it to work out where a piece of information will apply, the estimated distance can be corrected based on that designed linking distance. But the problem is that sometimes information is sent from unlinked Belize groups, and unlinked Belize groups may be encountered. Or, of course, linking information may not be available. And in that case, the confidence interval can grow and grow and grow. And when it gets big, decisions being made by the onboard about when to advise the driver to slow, perhaps for a temporary speed restriction, when to display information, they will always be on the safe side. And that means that they may happen significantly earlier than they are meant to. And that can be unsatisfactory, and there can be performance impacts. So there was a request to look at how to reset the confidence interval even though linking information was not available in some situations. And it's a pretty complex CR. You've got to make sure that whatever you do doesn't compromise the safety of other parts of the system, particularly where linking is used. And so that's still being debated. And it's probably 50-50 whether people think it's a good idea to even go down this route or whether actually we're making the product so complicated that it's going to be prone to error. So what next? Well, ERA, the agency, UNISIG, the suppliers, and EUG, the user group, will continue to work hard to find solutions, those technical solutions, and close out the CRs. And as we say, we hope to see the TSI and all of the technical subsets published later in 2023. Now, I haven't included a couple of things in here because I still don't understand them. One of them is the single set of specifications, the idea that we don't have different sets of specifications for the different ETCS system versions like we have currently for baseline 2, baseline 3 MR1 and baseline 3 release 2. How are they going to be catered for? I don't understand it. We'll talk about that perhaps in a later issue. And there's also a few other bits that I don't totally understand about how we're going to enforce keeping all the systems up to date. So there's some things still to come, and as I understand them, then I will explain them to you in more detail in future ETCS Talks Back. So the big questions are, will it be right? Will what comes out of this be perfect? And I think one of the problems is that we are now down to deadlines, or been on a deadline for a while. And when you put people under pressure, however good they are, things can go awry. Which of course means that we're not quite sure whether it's all going to work. And it's perhaps a criticism of the whole process that we don't have a good way of prototyping the draft text that comes out of CRs to actually investigate whether they will work, whether other unexpected things happen. That wouldn't be perfect, but it might prevent us getting errors in errors on errors. And of course, that then means we have to ask the question, how long will it be before there is a further update to the specifications? And instead of having baseline 4, we end up with baseline 4, maintenance release 1. So who knows? Time to place your bets. Put them in the comments now. And see you next time.